Minnesota Timberwolves beat writer for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune here on the show. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, Rich. How are you?
Appreciate you taking the time here amidst all the drama. Walk me through yesterday. You're there with the rest of the beat that's covering the Timberwolves, and then all of a sudden, what filters in that Jimmy Butler's in the gym?
Yeah. So here's what happened. We kind of knew that Butler might be at practice. But they do not allow the media into the practice to watch it. So, nobody really had any idea what was happening. They tell you to go at a certain time, show up at a certain time for media availability.
Yep.
The practice ended a half hour early yesterday. Now, we don't know if that was because of what Jimmy Butler did or not. That's very unusual. That practice ended a half hour early. And so they let us in. We talked to Thibodeau for a few minutes. He doesn't mention anything about Butler. A couple of players come, Anthony Tolliver and Jeff Teague, and they're asked about Butler. And their comments don't really, make you think that anything weird had happened or anything out of the ordinary. Jeff Teague, who's one of the most, I think, unshakable guys in the NBA, just kind of said, yeah, we had a good practice. Jimmy was around. Jimmy's my friend. He brings a lot of good energy to the team. Comments that kind of look hilarious in hindsight, based on what happened yesterday. But really, you wouldn't have had any idea that anything out of the ordinary had happened yesterday if you had shown up for media availability after practice.
So, how does one insert oneself into a lineup of third stringers, Chris? What did you hear? How did that? Seriously, I want to know the actual. How does one do that in a practice?
That I'm not sure how that all went down. People around the team are being very quiet right now. And it's kind of hard to get anybody to talk about this, but it was quite remarkable, the legend of this practice, and it's something that is probably going to grow throughout time. But that's kind of what happened. He challenged Cat, he challenged Wiggins, he challenged the front office. He said what he said. He tried to, I guess, walk it back a little bit later in his ESPN interview, but all that stuff happened yesterday, and it's quite remarkable. And it basically laid bare all the issues that have been going on with this team that have been bubbling under the surface since late last season, the tension with Wiggins and Towns especially.
Well, what is the tension about? He doesn't think they've got it, that they don't have the stomach, the heart, or they don't care? They don't. I mean,
that's exactly it. Yeah, I think in some ways Jimmy Butler's kind of an extension of Tom Thibodeau on the court. He's very hard driving, very demanding, very competitive, and I think that's why he and Thibodeau have gotten along for so well throughout most of Butler's time here in the NBA. And I think he looks at Towns and Wiggins, and he sees two guys that he doesn't think work as hard as he does. And that was the mantra that he kept repeating late last season, and it's something that he said last night in his interview. These guys have all the talent in the world, but they don't work as hard as me. And I think that's the main issue, and that's the main reason why he wants out of Minnesota, is because he doesn't think he can win with those guys. Now, the ironic thing is, you look at his list of teams that he wants to go to, the Nets, the Knicks, and to a lesser extent the Clippers, and you say, well, those teams don't seem to be in a great position to win right away. So what's this all about? So in a lot of ways, he's sending mixed messages with some of his comments and some of his actions.
Well, Chris Pine, Minneapolis Star-Tribune here. The mixed message as well is that he's saying the issue isn't money, it's the players that are on the court. And then why is he yelling at Scott Layden? Because those are the players that Scott Layden is telling Glenn Taylor is the nucleus of this team. Is that why he's barking at the general manager here in practice?
I think so. It was a weird comment because I don't think the Timberwolves would dispute that they need Jimmy Butler to win. That was allegedly what he said, that you bleeping need me to win. And I don't think the Timberwolves are disputing that. And I think that's why he's still on the roster and there still hasn't been a trade made, because I think Thibodeau is still holding out a glimmer of hope that Butler is going to be on this roster and they can try to make the playoffs with him there. I don't think they dispute that. But what's this all about? I think a lot of it is money at the end of the day. I think that Butler's and his camp are mad that the Timberwolves did not throw out his deal as they could have under the CBA and give him a new max deal this summer. They only offered him a 4-year, $110 million extension. If they had renegotiated his deal this summer, it would have necessitated a lot of salary cap maneuvering that the Wolves were not ready to undertake.
Yeah, but if he doesn't think the guys around him are winning players or have the winning attitude required to take on the Warriors, because obviously that's essentially what we're talking about here, essentially in that conference, then why does he want to be maxed out there?
Again, it's mixed messages. It's a confusing situation. We don't really know. How much does money talk in a situation like this? When you're staring at a paycheck for $30 or $40 million more than any team can offer you, how much does that really talk, and how much are you able to tolerate? Having Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns on your team, if it means signing for $30 to $40 extra million. It's a lot of money, and I don't know that there's an easy answer to that question. He says it's not about the money, but from what I've gleaned, that it is a little bit about the money.
I think we're just beginning to get to the confusing part too, Chris Hine, as well. I should throw out too that Rachel, in her interview with Jimmy Butler, did say at one point, recounting the end of last season, how he came back and talked about losing in the first round series against the number 1 seed Houston. He interrupted her and said, "That's a really good team too, by the way," is what he said.
I think he's sending a not so subtle signal out there.
Why not go there too? So a couple things here now. Has the owner ordered him traded or not? And if he did, tell Board of Governors members that he's going to get out of there. Why hasn't he been traded?
Glenn Taylor has demanded, or not demanded, but has said that he wants Butler. He has told Thibodeau and Layden he wants Butler traded. So that is the working mandate for this organization right now. Now, he has left it up to Thibodeau and Layden to do that. Taylor is not really doing the day-to-day negotiating of a deal. So the guiding mantra is that Taylor wants Butler dealt, but Thibodeau and Layden are the ones handling those negotiations. And so trades involving superstars can sometimes take a while. Kyrie Irving took weeks to get dealt. Look what happened with Kawhi this offseason. So Taylor wants him dealt, but it's taking time because I think in part Thibodeau might hope Butler comes back. But secondly, these trades take a while, and they have to create leverage in a market that is not a very favorable market for them right now. So I think you're seeing that kind of conflict come to a front here. Yes, the owner wants him gone, but it's taking time to get a deal that they want.
Well, to use the phrase from Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, Chris, I don't usually quote that, but time is a luxury they do not have, to be honest with you here. And the season's right around the corner, and Jimmy Butler is making things uncomfortable, to say the least. And my question is how does Karl-Anthony Towns kick that ball out? That, to me, out of everything, made me sit there and think the Timberwolves truly have a problem, even if Butler goes. How does Karl-Anthony Towns not take that ball and just throw it at him?
I don't know. And I think that is what Butler is saying. It's part of why he doesn't think he can coexist with these guys, because they just don't have the same fire, the same drive that he does, and that has shown up in practice before. I heard that, some people within the Wolves organization yesterday just kind of viewed what happened as another day in the life of having Jimmy Butler on your team, that it wasn't really all that out of the ordinary, if you can believe that. It seems crazy to us on the outside, but there were some within the organization that were like, well, it's just Jimmy being Jimmy in a sense.
Well, I don't know if this is a proper analogy, Chris. I mean, definitely not in terms of personality, although I've never met Jimmy Butler. One of the reasons why the Cowboys told Des Bryant we're done here is because a lot of members of the coaching staff thought that Dak did not need him chirping in his ear anymore. He needed to have a more confident group around him to build that up. Is Jimmy Butler stunting Karl-Anthony Towns' growth just by being there, do you think?
He could, absolutely. And they have so much money tied up now in Towns and Wiggins. I think about $340 million between those two guys, that you don't need anybody around stunting their growth. Now, what I think might be happening is, I think in some ways Thibodeau might look at this as a positive in some ways, that having Butler around, having somebody to really get at these guys might inspire them to greater heights. Now, you could debate the merits of that, but I think that that's definitely in play here. But I don't know that that's necessarily the best thing for the long-term health of the franchise.
All right, 2 more questions for you. Did the Timberwolves know ESPN was coming?
I think they were a little surprised by that. From what I've gathered, that was not obviously not arranged through the team.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of orchestration there on Butler and his camp's part to have ESPN there.
Is that his rec room? Did they go to his house? What was that? Where was that spot?
I'm not sure where that was located.
It's not a local Dave & Buster's or something like that? It's a very nice rec room. I got to be honest with you.
It looked very nice. I thought it might have been at the facility at first, but I'm not sure where that was.
Yeah, I don't know if the Timberwolves were making Jimmy available for a one-on-one sit-down, Chris.
So.
I'll be honest with you. Because because that's my last question for you. Today they canceled practice. Practice canceled. What now? What's happening now? What's the next step? Crystal ball it, essentially.
The next step is I'm going to hop in a car and drive to Milwaukee for their preseason game on Friday night, and we're going to see what happens in Milwaukee tomorrow. I think, the next 24 hours could be interesting. We'll see if canceling practice precipitates a move of some kind, if they're trying to buy time to get a deal done. I think that could be in the cards, but I'm not 100% certain of that. We'll see. The next 24 hours, the next week is going to be fascinating.
Lit, as the kids say. Any chance Butler plays Friday night, you think?
I think there's a chance. He said he would. He said in the ESPN interview that he would practice on Thursday. So I think there's a chance that he could play on Friday.
Who do they play against?
Milwaukee.
Okay, so Milwaukee. I see what you're saying. Okay, So any chance that Butler inserts himself into the bench of the Milwaukee Bucks during that game, Chris?
With the way this thing has gone the last 2 weeks, I don't rule anything out at this point.
Unbelievable. The whole thing's unbelievable. And by the way, I really always appreciate quality journalism and quality writing. You should check out Chris's article on StarTribune.com. The lead paragraph, Jimmy Butler sure knows how to make an entrance, even if he desperately wants to make an exit. Well done, Chris Hine.
Thank you, Rich.
I like that. Thanks for calling. You appreciate it. I appreciate you calling.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.